If you've lived in Utah for a while, you might know well that this is something like a success epicenter for the world. We have here the Franklin Covey Leadership Institute. The 7 Habits of Highly Effective People came out of here, followed by the 7 Habits of Highly Effective Teens and 7 Habits of Highly Effective Families. I think there's about 20 books you can read on 7 habits. I think that makes about 2 million habits that we should have to be highly effective people. If you can't tell from the sarcasm and the tone of my voice, I'm a little bit skeptical of this industry and the success peddlers. So when somebody came to me, David Ibarra, with a new book about leadership and success, I have to say I was a little bit skeptical, more than a little bit skeptical. I just not really into that thing. But I read his book, and when we had David Ibarra on the podcast 2 years ago when he was running for mayor, I honestly have to say I loved his answers. I really liked what he had to say, and I was truly disappointed he did not win. So I had him back on the program. He's the first guest we have had in studio in 16 months now on the Utah Stories show, but I truly enjoyed our conversation. We talked about his incredible story from being a kid in the foster care system, having a chip on his shoulder, getting in fights all the time, heading for a life in prison where his life was completely turned around by a man who taught him the power of serving others. And it's really an inspirational story for especially all the restaurant owners I know, the business owners I know, but for really anybody who is looking for a little bit of inspiration and a good sense of direction. We also get into the politics of Salt Lake City's homeless issues, of the politics of the culture war and so many people not wanting to work right now. It was a very fun conversation. So without further ado, the great David Ibarra. All right, joining me on the program today is author, CEO, and longtime business owner of many businesses, including restaurants, automotive businesses, and he's currently written a book that I've read most of. It's called Stop Drifting. It's the Power of Positive Thinking. It's David Ibarra. Thanks for joining me on the program today, David.
Well, thank you for having me. I appreciate it. Let me make one little correction. I'm not in the restaurant business anymore, but I grew up in the restaurant business.
Okay. You learned a lot of your secrets of
Yes,
positive thinking
really
and management.
Did. Absolutely.
Yeah, and I think, so the setting we find ourselves in today is a lot of small businesses have been just killed by COVID. I mean, I talk to people all the time where they just got through and now they can't find workers. They can't find people who are going to keep hours. They're having a real hard time getting the talent they need to just fulfill the positions. It's not like so much I hear that there's money shortages anymore because the government's been printing money out of, like crazy. Mm-hmm. So what advice would you have with restaurant owners in particular in rebuilding, getting their businesses up and running again? Most of them starting on a shoestring, right, and getting those motivated workers and talented people in their door again.
Well, first of all, it starts with identifying what your re-entry purpose is. And you'll hear me talk in everything that I do, is that as an owner of a business, you got to know what your purpose is. What are you trying to get the client to feel, the visitor, the guest, every time they come in? What do you want them to feel? They're going to forget what you say and do, but they're not going to forget how you made them feel. And articulate that to a group of folks that understand that this is the re-entry of what we want to do. But it shouldn't be just to get the door open, have somebody sit down, get a meal, and it was not as fast. It's not quite as themed as it was in the past. So we accept having an inferior experience. We can have and touch onto our imagination. How can we do something different? And how can we welcome back folks to our restaurants and our entertainment centers and talk about what the experience is going to be and remind them that these workers have been furloughed. They've been sitting home. They're scared. They have a future that looks a little less bright than it did before they left. And why not help them by, one, paying more and tipping more? And encourage it. Encourage it in a fun way, like a Southwest Airlines announcement. Why not? Mm-hmm. You go to places that do that, and they use the atmosphere, they theme an atmosphere. Now, things aren't going to work as good as they did, but they can be fun while you're there. Think outside the box, and you got to conquer fear. If you're operating from a negative state of mind, that's fear, and you've invited the whispers of Dr. Doubt. You're not going to make it. You'll probably have to close again. You will close again. You just directed your subconscious mind to make it so. You've got to block that. You got to get positive, and we got to talk about a new future. Heck, with my group, they know that if I believe that we're not believing, I'm going to sing a song. The sun will come out tomorrow. Just you. I will sing a song till everybody laughs. We got to laugh.
Yeah.
We have to learn how to cry for sure.
Yeah.
And then how to laugh so we can learn to live. And we got to get back to living.
Yeah, we got to learn to laugh again. That's a good one. So I look at your career, and it seems to me that one of the most influential things that happened to you, one of the best lessons you learned, was how old were you when you worked for at the ice cream
Farrell's Ice Cream Parlor? Yes. Yeah. Not only was I raised in Utah foster care from 1 to 14, which was an experience that you had to figure out how you fit because you didn't feel like you fit or belonged. Success wasn't meant for me, so my state of mind was negative. And then I go to get out at 14 and able to join my father in Sacramento, California, which was a life changer for me for sure. And then I'm a football player and I'm really good. Then I get hurt and I'm not a football player anymore. Now I'm just an uneducated Latino from the bad side of town. That isn't good entry-level material. I'm going to Sacramento City College. It's free at the time, so this free junior college isn't kind of a novel idea. It was back from a long time ago. And I got to earn $200. And I'm a bank teller in the morning, taking 5 classes, and I got to get $200. What could I do? I get a job as a dishwasher. I believe that's going to be the most insignificant job in my life. It turned out to be the most significant thing to happen to me in my life. I'm washing dishes, and a owner comes in. He had 25 at the time, and he was visiting, and he called himself the theme builder. He wanted to make sure that every one of us knew exactly what our jobs were and that I had the most important job, a dishwasher. Are you kidding me? I'm the dishwasher. Takes me out to the dining, shows me it's full. There's a line waiting. Then he takes me and shows me we use real china. This glass, it can't get in front of our patrons, our guests, if it's not their lipstick. And then he teaches me how to wash dishes. Took off his jacket and teaches. Meanwhile, he's looking at the manager. He's really teaching the manager, how in the world did David Ibarra get onboarded without getting trained? But the next morning he says, I'm going to see you at 7:30 in the morning. I'm thinking 7:30 in the morning on Saturday. Are you kidding me? That's my only day off. 7:30. Well, in those days you show up or you won't be working. So I show up, and he stands up. Now he's got a regional manager, a district manager, the manager. So he called these other 2 folks. He was not happy with that restaurant. But he didn't berate him. He didn't talk down to him. Instead he said, everybody stand up. Okay, give it to me. What's our purpose statement? We looked at each other. Nobody knew. He looked over at Dennis Bean, the manager, gave him just a look. He said, that's okay. I'll share it with you. And had an easel with it written, but he didn't turn the page. He said, Farrell's features fabulous food and fantastic fountain fantasies for frolicking, fun-filled, festive families. Now, I'm going to turn this over, and I want you to say it with me and say it with enthusiasm. I'm thinking like, wow. We say it, no, with enthusiasm again and again. You don't ever open this restaurant without getting in a circle and chanting that 3 times, because those guests that come in are expecting to have a good time. They're coming for celebrations, and they've been waiting. So they got to leave with a smile and a little dose of happy-itis. Everybody left that meeting. I waited till the very end. I didn't want anybody to accuse me of being a kiss-ass. So I waited till the very end. I'm a tough Latino kid. You better not look at me crosswise, or I was on the wrong track. I had a chip on my shoulder, and it was horrible. I waited till the very end. I walked up to Mr. Farrell. Mr. Farrell, can you share something with me? How does it feel to know what you want? He says, nothing happens until you do, David. And I'm going to introduce you to that other person that's inside of you that you haven't met in a very long time. Hold on. Runs out to his car, comes back, and gives me a book. He tells me if I read this book 3 times, that when he visits Farrell's, he'll carve out an hour for me and be my mentor. And he'll do it as long as I do the actions that we agree upon. I read the book. It was Think and Grow Rich by Dr. Napoleon Hill. And I've been reading the book 10 minutes ever since. Mr. Farrell was my mentor. 10 years later, from a kid who was headed in the wrong direction, I was the youngest franchise owner, bought my own restaurant 10 years later at 28. And I've opened 7 businesses since, and I'll tell you what, I'll always owe Mr. Farrell for the rest of my life. And I promised him that there was a payment involved. It was for me to pay back by mentoring others. And I've mentored over 1,000 on Wednesday nights at no cost, and I can't participate, I can't gain. This is all about giving back. And everyone I mentor has to pay me back by mentoring others too. So that's just our little thing.
Man, I don't say that a lot, but that gives me goosebumps. That's an amazing story. Yeah. So you were basically heading for being one of these at-risk kids, in the foster program. We hear about it a lot because we're working through the foster system right now with kids we're adopting. And they're at risk. You're going the wrong direction. Do you think had that not happened, you would have had a chance?
Well, let me tell you, if I had not found a purpose, if I had not decided I needed an education, and while I never graduated from college, I ended up going to work with Mr. Farrell, and I'll tell you what, I got a degree from Mr. Farrell. Mm-hmm. And I've been very successful. If I hadn't met him, I was headed probably for an institution, but it wasn't a higher learning institution.
Yeah. Yeah, if you're not heading in the right direction, your life catches up.
In my neighborhood, a lot of folks got in trouble. And a lot of folks, went the wrong way, and bright, but they just didn't have the guidance, and ended up in trouble. And I'm sure I was a young man that was headed in the same direction.
So he was your mentor for how long after that?
Mr. Farrell died about 8 years ago, and we met up, and as he got older, it just became me going to Portland, Oregon, and I'd fly over. We'd go to lunch and visit some of his other restaurants. He was always in the restaurant business. Hired him to give some speeches. He had a motivational company, and we stayed connected. We shared stories, but mostly shared the gift of giving, giving back. And it was a responsibility as a disciple of Dr. Hill in his work with Think and Grow Rich and the Science of Success principles. To do some writing and to do some teaching and to do it one-on-one, for whether it's a college student, whether it's a business owner. And there's a ton of Latino business owners in this state that have been in my office and been in that chair where we work through problems. And I tell them, if you wake up and you can't sleep, call me. We'll go over to Denny's and we'll work it out until we can both sleep. But that's my responsibility. And they take me up on it. I get calls.
Wow. Huh. So as far as getting an entry-level job at a young age, my first job was dishwasher.
Mm-hmm. Hobart machine, you know it.
Yeah, absolutely. But it to me, that is the best job you can start out in, because not only are you really do have such an important job. Everybody needs clean dinnerware. You're an integral part of the organization at day one. At 15 years old, I knew that at my first job. But you get this view of the world of the importance of good management, the importance of giving a customer experience, the importance of so many things that you just absolutely will never get in in a classroom. And so how would you recommend kids who don't want to work these days, who want to get this free education? Absolutely. How do you recommend that they get this experience so that they understand the world better?
Well, first of all, I would start by saying so important to learn the power of serving another. We've changed to a society of wanting to be served instead of to serve. A lot of the folks that I mentor from the Latino community have had service jobs. And I remind them, and they're some embarrassed about the serving job, whether it's a busboy or a busser, I should say today, and whether it's a server or what have you. And I said, no. Don't ever lose the joy of serving. I've made a career out of to serve another. I'm going to serve you if you own a company, and I work with owners every day, and they've got problems just like the rest of them. I want to work with owners of big companies because they got a lot of associates, and I can affect a lot of people all at once. How is it to figure out what rich means to you in the 5 categories of family, faith, community, health, and wealth? And if you can figure out your own combination to your lock, define rich, don't let anyone define that but you. Now, for our young folks, I don't think we want to deprive them of to earn and to participate. I don't believe anything ought to be free. A college education should be free. There should be a requirement of something done in the way of public service to get that free. Mm-hmm. Whether it's big brothers, big sisters, whether it's working in the other side village, working with something, whether it's whatever it is, we should, whether it's mentoring other students, we should be providing something. We really eliminate the to desire emotion from people when we just give without expecting to help them pay back because they want to. And if they lose the want to pay back and participate, you've created a lower society.
Yeah, because I look at where we're heading as a society, and we've been covering the culture war here on this podcast for a while. And the way I see it is you have a lot of kids who feel, I think, economically disenfranchised. They see their parents owning homes, and they're graduating with a pile of student debt over their heads. They're renting. They're working as a barista because they got that English or psychology degree. Mm-hmm. And they're wondering, how in the world can I ever realize this American dream? And the American dream to them is, well, look at Bernie Sanders. I mean, he's promising free college education. He's promising socialist type solutions. Mm-hmm. What do you say to them to bring us back from where we could head, strong socialism, to either a left of center solution, or something back to where we have an ownership society again?
Well, first of all, let me say that Bernie Sanders makes a lot of sense to me, but he just is a horrible communicator. Okay, there is no such thing as free.
No. When I hear that word, the government's going to give you free anything. The government
can't give you anything because the government is a collection agency of its people.
Yeah.
So if we were to insert different rules or words, rather, I'd say, don't be a POW, a prisoner of words. If you were to insert to invest, that this country must invest in the asset of talent building. We got capital that all of a sudden, do we have capital or do we have negative capital? We owe more than we have. We're in trouble in the capital area. We're in trouble in the talent area. But it takes 2 things to be successful. The government owes it to our people to invest in the right things. The internet didn't happen on its own. Al Gore didn't invent it, but he brought it to everyday people through legislation. There's a time period. The electric car isn't going to be. When I was running for mayor, if you recall, I talked about having electric cars moving people from segment to segment. And I had people say, oh, David's up in the night. That's never going to happen. Well, it's happening right now in Long Beach. It's happening. But it wouldn't happen without government assistance through rebates to give it its oomph. The government plays a role. Business plays a role. Parents play a role, but what we've got to do is invest in ourselves. Bernie Sanders, when he says free, he's using the wrong word. Take part of the taxes collected and ensure that it goes back to the education of the American people. Now, I don't believe that anything is free. And we all got to give back. And if you get something without paying $1 and you don't pay $1 in services back, well, then we've just ruined you. Yeah. Everybody's got to pay back in services to another or payment, depending on your abilities. But everybody ought not be excluded from the opportunity to learn.
But how do you shift that mindset? If somebody is like, well, I'm not a millennial. I'm a Gen I. I guess I think that's what they're calling it, or Gen Y. But now I've suffered the 2008 housing collapse. I've suffered through COVID. Yeah. I've suffered through this new recession. It looks like we're heading into, and the job market's not there. My student loans are oppressive. How do you get somebody out of this like victim mentality and get him into
the negative nut house?
Yeah, and get him into the I want to take that job as a dishwasher. I want to empower. Nobody wants those jobs. Nobody's willing to take them anymore.
I tell you, isn't it amazing that every generation is the one that sacrificed the most? Bull.
Yeah.
We haven't sacrificed the most. As a matter of fact, Americans have not sacrificed for a very long time. Otherwise, we wouldn't have had an Afghan war for 20 years that didn't come with it a surcharge of a payment. And if it came with a surcharge that we had to pay as we went because it was the right thing to do, guess what? We probably wouldn't have had a 20-year war or to see what we've seen once before in the fall of Saigon, what we're seeing right now. It's a disgrace.
Yeah.
But it starts whenever somebody is doing something and we're not all participating. I would have gladly paid $2,000 a month for a war tax for the right purpose, but get us into something that isn't for the right purpose, I wouldn't want to pay $20. And we wouldn't have been there. When you don't pay, when you don't support, you're always going to end up paying, and it's going to be a little bit bigger price tag than you had intended. We need to get everybody participating in giving something for what they get in the way of services, in the way of mentoring our kids that don't have two parents. And I know what that feels like. I know what it felt like to have an adult take an interest in me, Al Smith, family that I lived with, and man, he was a teenager, but he taught me how to play football. He was my pony league coach. He loved and cared about my brother Mickey and I, and he gave of his time. And we all should learn just how good we feel, the gratitude we gain that will just fuel our genius engine if we can get back. But when we do free, I would tell Bernie Sanders, don't try to destroy the American fabric. And I'm a Democrat, and I'm proud to be a Democrat, but I don't believe in free. There is no such thing.
Well, I considered myself more Democrat than a Republican until I started hearing that word too much.
Yeah.
Like, we need free health care. We need free... I mean, because my wife came from Europe, and socialism and communism has been tried over and over and over, and it doesn't harness that power of the human spirit like we've had here in America to have a free market and to have the ability to go into a market and make your dream something into reality. That's really...
But let me ask you a question. Now, if I came to you and I said, for the trillions of dollars that are collected in taxes, Okay? And I pay a lot of taxes, and I'm glad to pay them. I'm not one of these guys that pays my 45% or whatever the highest tax bracket is I pay, and I'm going to moan and groan about it. I'm blessed. If I get 60 cents on the dollar left over for me, I'm blessed. But I want that 40 cents or that 45% cents to be invested well. So if I said back to you that in this America, that the taxes collected, we're not going to spend on Afghanistan and big war machines, but the money has to be invested first in a college education opportunity for everyone, in a healthcare system that is built around the wellness of another, and it is first taken out of this tax collection, you wouldn't say back to me, no, that's free. You would say, yeah, that's what I expected you to do. So what we ought to do, instead of, we talk about socialism, it's not socialism, it's being paid for by the American people. What we ought to talk about is the accountability of the spend. When we look at 18, 19 cents to cover the interest rate on the national debt, that would cover health care. Mm-hmm. We are out of control on how we spend. And the fact of the matter is, most elected officials, not all, most elected officials do not raise to the talent level to be in their position that they have.
Yeah,
and that's why we have messes.
And most of them are career politicians. They don't understand they don't understand the entrepreneurial spirit. And something I talked about is we really live in this dual economy. We have an economy that's run by corporate America that encompasses half of all the jobs. These are all giant corporations, and they all have lobbyists. They all have relationships with our politicians, and our politicians are working for that corporate America. But the whole other half of America consists of small business owners. There's 30. I think I found there's 3 million small businesses in the United States. I might be off by...
There's 800,000 small businesses will be opened every year.
Yeah, it's an incredible number.
800,000.
But our politicians are not working for them anymore.
Well,
they're working for the big corporate donors. And
to me, the fact is, okay.
But I just want to finish my point. So what we're seeing, I think, is a centralization of power among the corporate elite and the bureaucratic elite that are trying to harness more and more power, more and more money, more and more influence, and they're trying to leave the small business owners out. And what's happened since COVID is more and more small businesses are closing. They're just throwing in the towel because they don't have any influence, they don't have any power, and they're not getting the money. So it's like, what is the solution here? I don't.
I'll tell you this: is that one is that it's difficult when we lump everything into one statement. Like, I don't believe that all corporations are bad.
Not all of them,
because corporations are people, and but I'll tell you this: wherever there's power that is with no oversight, and greed is everywhere. Every individual is responsible to manage their own level of greed, but when there's no oversight and there's a lot of power, and we have politicians that frankly don't have the talent. You look at some of our city council. Oh my heavens. Now that scares me to death. There is nothing wrong with being ignorant. To be ignorant, the word ignorant is not a bad word. It means to lack specialized knowledge in a subject. But we have people on the council and a mayor that lacks talent. Ignorant in so many different categories, but that's not a deficiency if you recognize it and build a specialized talent, people of proven track records to solutions, and then know when to lead and know when to follow a specialized talent member working in harmony. That's what we need our mayor to do. We need our city council not to be the decision makers on a lot of these spends. They need to put the team to understand it and approve it, and then it would be excellent. But if you will not recognize the ignorance that all of us have, I'm ignorant in a lot of subjects.
Yeah.
That's why I've got a lot of vice presidents that aren't. I make sure we bring in somebody with that talent level, and if I wasn't, then I wouldn't be ignorant. If I didn't do it this way, I wouldn't be ignorant. I'd be stupid.
Well, where I see, the last time you were on the podcast, you were running for mayor.
Yeah.
I really appreciated your answers to a lot of the problems we're having with homelessness, with housing.
Yeah,
I
it
mean,
caused me to lose.
You're well, you're well qualified for the job. You're CEO,
Yeah.
and we don't endorse candidates, but
Sure.
I mean, your answers compared to your opponent who was on the show too, I thought it was pretty clear. I mean, who people can choose who they want to vote for, but my point is, the money flew to one candidate, and I kind of know the back channels how this happened. When she was like, I'm running, I'm going to, run my campaign however I can, and then that money got to that candidate, people voted for that person because she had her name everywhere, and she had the right support groups behind her. And when it's all about the money in politics and who's got the most money, and 9 times, maybe not 9 times out of 10, but probably 70% of the time, whoever has the most money wins.
Well,
how do you operate and get the best candidate in that kind of environment?
Well, first of all, I'd like to make a correction. The person that had the most money lost. That was me.
Well, in terms of special interest money.
No, I had the most money by far.
Really?
Almost doubled to Erin Mendenhall. What Erin Mendenhall had was the knowledge of running a campaign. She didn't have more talent than me. There is no way that she's more qualified than I am. But that's my opinion, and of course I'm going to believe that, but my experience would say so. She knew better how to run the campaign and what to say, but what to say doesn't mean that that's the solution. So if you're running for a political position and you give the real answer, you probably will not get elected because people aren't looking for the real answer. Now, for me, frankly, I never intended to be mayor more than one term because I believed that the homeless situation could have been fixed. That was my gift to do, and then pass it on to somebody else and get back to doing what I love to do, and that's my businesses. But our city, we were losing our city. Well, in 2 years, we haven't losing our city. We've lost it.
Yeah.
At nighttime, it is the saddest thing to hear. People screaming out of their minds, yelling, profanity, whining, moaning, tents everywhere. So when the politicians want to come to you and give you statistical reasons as to why that's so, no, you hired the wrong politician. If you don't believe that you can fix it, go find someone that can. And it's not too late for this mayor, and it's not too late for this city council. We can solve this. They've got to look for the solutions and the people that can. And there's plenty of people that can. The guy who's Joseph Grenny and the Other Side Village. This guy brings the talent. All we got to do is get the politicians to support and get out of the way.
Yeah, and that has been, you corrected me earlier, that has been the one idea that I've loved the most. It's not come out of the Mendenhall administration. It's come from outside. It's come from the Other Side Academy.
Yeah.
And you're now affiliated with promoting the idea of a tiny house village, where they obviously the biggest challenge is zoning. All these NIMBYs we have here, not in my backyard.
Yeah, exactly.
So you're helping Joseph get this. Is that his name?
Joseph Grenny.
Joseph Grenny, to get this moving forward. And so what are the obstacles? Is it moving forward? Is it going to happen?
One is that Joseph Grenny and the Other Side Academy, it's their project. I happen to supporting it with running some mayor, some money. But I'll tell you this, it cannot become a reality without our mayor. Our mayor, and I believe she will, and I believe she has the passion too, and I believe she believes in it, is that zoning, the land available on the west side that used to be a dump. Oh my heavens, we're putting it on the west side. We're putting it wherever a community can flourish. And those that wouldn't want to give these people a chance to build a community, this isn't going to be a project.
Yeah.
This is going to be a community. Just listen. And whatever we do, if we shoot everybody in the foot that has a good big idea, we'll never get it solved, because right now we got communities all over this city. I am absolutely hate guns. And if it was my way, I'll say something very unpopular. Nobody would have a handgun. But guess what? I'm registering and I'm getting a handgun. Our police force in Salt Lake City, good officers, want to do their job. Bad leadership. 5 phone calls. 911. People getting attacked. Do you think anybody answers them? No, we're lost because we have leaders that want to articulate why they can't. Instead of being creative with the funds they have and the personnel they have, these officers want to be led. Lead them. And take a look at the head count. How many are in administration and how many officers do we have in the field? And that ought to be a certain proportion. I think we're a little out of balance. Leadership can make the difference in everything we do. We need the mayor to do well. I want the mayor to do well. I don't know if Chief Brown's the guy. We need leadership at the Salt Lake City Police Department. We need leadership in the council. We need good corporate sponsors that are going to put money in. And we got to try to work together in harmony. Know what you know what you don't know. Get people in that know that and work in harmony. I want our mayor to succeed. I want our city council to succeed. I want our police force to protect and serve.
What is driving these homeless problems like we've never seen before? I mean, so obviously these encampments show up.
Yeah.
I go down to town. I don't go as much as I used to.
It's horrible.
Because it's just like you go and you're so discouraged because it's gone one day, it comes back the next day. It's like we've seen this happen at like Venice Beach in California. Now it's happening here.
Yeah.
They got rid of the road home. It's a giant empty lot with a bunch of weeds. And now just east of it, you see Rio Grande. People camped out all along the street. What can we do to solve this problem?
You know, we one is that I don't believe that we can solve the problem city by city. It's a regional.
Yeah,
they
tried kicking them out of the city. They just moved to the suburbs.
It's a Utah problem. It's a California problem. And what we've got to have is again harmony of cities working together. That no, it can't be anywhere but my city. And even if we have to go to the state legislature and have legislation created, that a city cannot do that. I never thought I would support that, but then I look at the obstructionists that we have in every city, anywhere but mine. We built a resource center that was supposed to be a resource center. You come in to get assessed. There was 9 reasons as to why folks end up homeless. Gail Miller and Mayor Palmer de Palmas did a task force. You read it, and it's good stuff. But we are great at planning and organizing. We just suck at executing. Because now the resource centers are shelters. And they're run from the same people that ran the shelters who said the resource centers should never be built. So, okay, let's have a great big idea. Let's put them in charge of the resource center. This makes less sense the more you look at it. We need to have an overnight safe place field house. That if you don't want to go into a center for assessment,
that's what the road home was, right?
Well, no, because that was the only solution. It just housed people for something, and you're out. The resource center was assessment, and then a program developed to have you go through it in 90 days, then into affordable housing or the other side village, and become part of a community and a support center to change. But if you are on the street, you got to have a place to go.
Yeah.
And if we don't have a clean, safe place to go where you're welcome, and you can tell me to screw off, I hate you, yell at me, but I got to like you. I say, Richard, well, I'll see you tomorrow then. Richard, I'll see you tomorrow then. Until one day, you, Richard, you know what, Dave? How do I get into a resource center? Until you gain the desire to want something different, well, then we'll go through this drill 30, 40 times, but you can't be in the street. And we can't have crime hoodlums embedded amongst these poor folks hiding for profit. We can eliminate it. And then if you can't be in the street and you can't enterprise illegal activities in the street, you'll go to somewhere else. And if you go to South Salt Lake, we got to be prepared to help South Salt Lake the exact same way. Until we move people out of our state? No. Until we move them into an assessment program, into wellness as best we can. There'll always be a percent, yes, that resist, but they don't have to be in our street. We can move them. We've got a place. The jail has what, 380 beds available over in South Salt Lake. What's it? For heaven's sake. Yeah, Oxbow. Mm-hmm. So we don't even have to build it. We just need to put personnel in it to where if you resist, you get arrested, and you have a 72-hour inspection area. If it's mental illness, let's have enough humanity within us to get the necessary treatment to help that person. If it's drug addiction, then let the person go through the withdrawals and let's get them help. Mm-hmm. But you're going to one place or the other until you decide to go into. Now, some will say, David, that's the dumbest idea. And those will be the same ones that are yeah, but brothers and sisters that will give us the yeah, but song and give us all the statistics. We have a 10% reduction in the number of police. Well, what happened to imagination, and how do we bring ourselves together to serve the people of this great state? Yeah. And people want to serve. We just need to find the leaders to lead.
Yeah, the last time.
Soapbox.
Yeah. I wasn't going to talk. We weren't going to talk so much about city stuff, but it's just right now. It is like I feel like we are kind of losing. We are losing the city, and it's
lost it.
Yeah, you're just feeling like what's happened typically in places in South America is there's an elite rich, and then there's a very poor.
Yeah.
And that prevents people from wanting to walk around, enjoy the parks, and you just see people camping out, and you see needles and all that, and you see crime. And so I just you can feel that for the first time, I think it's the first time in America, the class divisions are becoming far more stark and real than they've ever been before. And it's just like, how do you get these poor people moving in the right direction so they can join a middle class, and then you see the middle class is shrinking because of housing costs. Well, and it's just an unfortunate situation.
Is that I don't think that we need to be called a socialist society to have some things within our society not for profit. I don't want to have us have a system that you profit on my illness.
Yeah.
I don't know that we ought to have a system that you profit on my children's education. Some things are the investment of a human being, and it's not for profit. And when we look at, I go to this, I go to Tijuana, Mexico, which, by the way, is 10 times safer, 10 times cleaner than Salt Lake City. And I'm there 3 times a year for 4 days. It's where my wellness doctor is, and I go in and do all this homeopathic stuff to just feel good. But I'll tell you, when I go, people say, hey, would you get this prescription for me? What? I said, I'm not going to be your mule. I got to go get these prescriptions. So a couple of times I'll get some for a diabetes or what have you, and a pill or this or that. And it's like 20% of what it costs in the United States.
Yeah.
Now, how can that be? How can we feel good about doing that to another human being? So it doesn't make us a socialist society to have an investment from our collected tax dollars that came from us collectively.
Yeah, well, I mean, we definitely should be bargaining with drug companies on getting prescriptions cheaper, especially things like insulin for diabetics, and that's actually something Donald Trump started to do.
Well,
but it's like you look at our health care system in general, and it's really seems to me to be like a sickness care system where you get in the system. For example, you're diagnosed depressed. You're given this expensive antidepressants, whereas if you stop taking them, we did a story about this. You get these suicidal tendencies. You feel awful. You can't get off them. and the drug companies say, but this is the best thing you could be doing, and the insurance companies say this is the best thing you need to be taking.
I can tell you, I go south of the border to get my and I love my doctor here in Salt Lake City. I've got a great doctor here in Salt Lake City, Jason Hamula, but I go to Mexico because I have more trust, and I'll tell you what, I feel real good.
You go there to get just medications or treatment?
I
or
go through just wellness. I do stem cell treatments. I do things that are I have a 6% body fat, which is the same body fat that I had in high school. Who said we're supposed to be an obese society? I don't believe we have to. It's about how you eat. It's about how I work out. I take no medication of any kind, period.
Yeah.
None.
Neither
and I
do
got and I check out very well. No blood pressure problems. No issues with triglycerides. When I started, I did, but now I don't because they approach wellness.
Well,
how do you become well?
My wife from Bosnia says there's herbal remedies for depression, anxiety, slow metabolism, all sorts of herbal things that we've just somehow forgotten about here.
Why would we do that, Richard?
Because there's no intermediary to get rich.
Bingo.
Yeah.
As long as money is in the equation, it connects to an out-of-control greed, and I just don't believe that we ought to have this prescription society that we got folks on. And have you ever heard of a drug being sold on a television advertisement that didn't have that long, these are the side effects? Okay, well then why are we doing it?
Yeah, exactly. Yeah, and these commercials are allowed to be on TV, so you can say, I want this drug to your doctor. It's like
crazy.
It just doesn't make sense. You're supposed to.
How do you think the comments are going to be about this show? I probably shouldn't. I probably shouldn't read any of them, right, Richard?
Well, I'm glad you're open and honest. I mean, I would probably go to the south of the border too if I knew about the right person.
Well, we've talked about the city. We've talked about education. We've talked about we've covered a lot of topics.
Yeah,
I'm sure we're going to have a lot of crazy guys.
Yeah.
You know what? I love America, and I want us to get back to trying to live up to our Constitution and our Bill of Rights. We never have been there. That was two documents that described what we would journey to. Mm-hmm. And we need to take that journey again. We need to dedicate us to that purpose. And that's what it is to be an American. It isn't to shout and scream and get all mad because somebody exercised their right to kneel during the, all of these symbols. Can't we just get on about trying to be better to each other and not scream at each other?
Well, I like you bring back the founding documents because it seems like there's a growing number of people who think that those are antiquated today, and that we should write a new constitution or forget about it, and that scares me. I mean, that's the direction that the country's heading into, where you see kids that are just sort of indoctrinated into the idea that America's not a great country, that we need to redo it. We need a great reset. And so
I'll tell you this, is that I don't like the slogan, the greatest country on earth. Well, and half the population's never been anywhere else.
Yeah.
Based on what? Mm-hmm. We ought to base it on that we have the lowest child mortality rate. We ought to base it on that we have the highest education achieved of any nation. We ought to be able to judge it on our happiness level. Instead, we'll go to a slogan. That'll make it right. And when anybody disagrees with us, we'll yell and scream at him and threaten him.
Mm-hmm.
We got to refine our way. We got to readjust our compass. We got to go true north again, and we can, and I believe we will. Yeah. We need better leadership, and where all the leaders have gone, I don't know, but we got to find them. And by the way, I'm not running for anything again.
No, you're not going to run for any office again?
No. Damn. I am very happy. Well, unless I get really ticked off, and then I once said never. Right now, I am so ticked off, I am not saying never anymore.
Okay. Well, good. Well, so you wrote this book, Stop Drifting, How to Become the Switch Master of Your Own Thought and Pivot to Positive. So what made you decide you wanted to finally write a book about what you've done and with your life?
Well, I tell you, I think that sharing the secret about living a life with a positive state of mind instead of a negative state, and we hear most of our leaders are negative states, why things won't happen. Positive. I was telling you earlier, I think before we started, that I love this one quote. I try to say it every day. Some look at things the way they are and say, why? Woe is me. Others look at dreams that never were and say, why not? Why not me? And we've got to be the second part, not the first part. Mm-hmm. It's too easy to be negative. And in here is 40 years of my experience. It's a fictional story of a owner of a company that didn't get the value of developing talent, and the leader of a company who did get it, and how their chance meeting changes the life of the automobile dealer that didn't understand, and makes him a believer. And the stories of the different characters as they went through change, and every one of those characters are real people, not by name, but it's what I found in the work that I've done, and I really enjoyed wanting to share it in a fictional short story way. I think it's 120 pages, so it's an easy read. Mm-hmm. And if you want to hear more of me, you can buy that in audio, and I'll narrate it to you in my own voice.
Nice. Yeah, well, I've read most of it,
Okay.
and I like it, especially because I'm training for a marathon.
Perfect.
I got sidelined for a little bit, but I'm back to my training regimen.
I've run 7.
Wow.
And I'll tell you what, you will be a part of less than 1% of our society that's run a marathon. So
Really?
when you cross a line, when you cross that line like me the first time, I couldn't believe it. Tears started rolling down my cheeks. I was just, the pain you will feel and what you go through, it is awesome.
Yeah.
Unbelievable.
Yeah. That sounds awesome. Well, yeah, well, thanks so much. I think that feels like a good place to wrap it up, and unless you had anything else you wanted to touch on or say.
No, I'd just like to say thanks to you, Utah Stories. I couldn't think of a better topic, and there's so much to talk about in our state. I love our state. I love America, and we got to have more conversations. We got to be willing to talk to each other without shouting each other. And if you get angry by anything that was said on this program today, I would encourage you to really do some due diligence, study. Don't let the opinions or hearsay of others affect your subconscious mind to the point that you would be angry, because we should be able to have dialogue and never get angry at each other.
Yeah, that's exactly what I think. This forum that we set up, just talking about big issues, the big issues that matter. That's really what was going strong before COVID, and then we tried this whole virtual model. It didn't work. Mm-hmm. It didn't have the same feeling at all. And so now we're restarting it. You're our first guest in studio in over a year, and so wow. I feel fortunate to have you on. I'm really happy.
Like being first.
Yeah.
I like being first back. Thank you so much.
Yeah, thanks so much.
Perfect.
So the book is Stop Drifting, and it's available on Amazon. I saw it on Amazon, and yeah, it's awesome. It's a good way to get your mind tap into the ability to switch your mind into the positive direction, and it's really the key component to running a business and managing people. You can't have a negative frame of mind and do anything great or positive, so I'd recommend it. And yeah, so thanks again, David.
Well, thank you very much for having me today. I appreciate it.
All right.
Hey friends, thank you so much for hanging out. I really appreciate it. If you'd like to support this program, please give us a thumbs up. Also subscribe to our channel. But the best way you can help us out is to go out and subscribe to our free digital newsletter or paid subscription magazine. If you have not checked out Utah Stories print edition, you are seriously missing out, because print is the best way to absorb information into your brain. It's actually, studies have proven that print is far more effective than digital to actually absorb information in an effective way. So subscribe to Utah Stories print edition. It's actually only $24 for the entire year, $2 per month. Go down here, click on this subscribe button, and we will send you a copy every single month directly to your door. And by doing so, you will be supporting our awesome team of local journalists. We actually are aiming to get 10,000 subscribers by the end of the year. It's a tall order, but if we get that, we will start producing heavy, in-depth investigations into the inner workings of politics and crony capitalism in Utah. And we will also continue to work on solutions for the housing shortage and homelessness that we find growing problems here in Utah. So with your $2 per month subscription, you can help us out a great deal toward achieving those goals. Thanks so much for watching. I'll see you next time.